This video is sponsored by UnlockThatPhone.com. Unlock any phone, any carrier, worldwide. Visit UnlockThatPhone.com for more information. How's it going, guys? Jared back. So I've spent some time with this device for a while now, and of course with every device there's always some pros and some cons. That said, this is my review of the LG G Flex. Alrighty, so here it is, the mythical creature, the magical creature, the LG G Flex. This is LG's first stab at a flexible display. From what I understand, this device has actually been in the works for approximately 5 to 6 years, give or take. And this was kind of their, I guess, when, I don't know which came first, the Galaxy or the Samsung Galaxy Round or the LG G Flex, but either way, the Galaxy Round was Samsung's answer to flexible displays, and the G Flex is LG's first stab at flexible displays. Now, that's something that I wanted to get out of the way right away. If any of you guys follow me on any of my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, you guys have probably seen me post various complaints about the display. Now, aside from it being a 6-inch display, which comes with a 720p resolution, and only a 245 ppi, which is pretty sad considering it came late 2013, and by April 2013 we already had the HTC One and the Galaxy S4, which already had 1080p displays. Granted though, because they're smaller displays, they do have a higher PPI count. Still, nevertheless, a 720p display late 2013 is just kind of sad, especially considering the price point. It's priced at devices that have 1080p displays and so on. But aside from those flaws, my biggest issue was the screen burn-in. Now, some of you guys may be familiar with the term screen ghosting, some screen burn-in, but if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically images on the display will actually, once you change screens or change scenarios, maybe you're on a search menu and then you switch to a text messaging application, you'll still be able to see some of those items that were on the previous screen that you were looking at on the new screen that you're looking at. So I'm going to see if I can reproduce this really quickly for you guys here, and I'm hoping it shows up on camera. So the display right now, full disclosure, is on full brightness, and generally that's where most people actually have their display set at, which is also, by the way, a battery killer where a lot of people complaining about batteries. But anyways, that's a story for another day. But you'll notice up here, we've got this little search icon going on now. And when I first pulled the device out of the box and I powered it on and I was going through and taking a look at all the different applications, I kind of landed on this screen here of the app tray, and I was like, oh cool, quick remote. So pay attention to the search icon there, and I clicked on the quick remote. And I don't know if it's showing up on screen or not, or if it's just visible by the naked eye, but the search icon actually still remains there, and that's just not acceptable. Screen burn-in is something to be expected with OLED displays. As at the very earliest, and this is an extremely rare case of this, 6 months into owning a device. Generally speaking, you won't start seeing screen burn-in, at least you shouldn't start seeing screen burn-in until about 2 years, maybe even 3 years into your device ownership. I even have a Samsung Galaxy S3 with an AMOLED display, and it's what, 3 years old now, give or take, and I still can't see any screen burn-in on it whatsoever. That said, it's not uncommon for other users to report that they do have screen burn-in on their S3s, but anyways, I digress. So that aspect of the display is just extremely unacceptable. Now, as far as the actual curvature of the phone, the whole flexible concept of it, it's cool, but it really does lose its novelty extremely quickly. And if you're wanting a phone that's sort of an eye-catcher and you're wanting your friends to ask you questions about it, the curve on it is, although, most of us, if you're watching this video, are probably looking at it because you're aware of the what seems to be a dramatic curve, but when you get it in your hands, it really isn't that dramatic. And as a result, when you take it out at parties or whatever, nobody asks about it. I haven't had one single person ask me, wow, cool, is that the new G Flex? Or wow, cool, your phone's display is curved, or whatever. It just never happens. It's just a huge phone with a low resolution display and some higher end internal components. So anyways, with that out of the way, I guess another thing I wanted to talk about was the performance. Now, I've recently put out a video, the LG G Flex versus the Galaxy Note 3 comparison video, and I touched base on performance between the two. And with the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 having a Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 processor, quad-core obviously, clocked at 2.30 gigahertz, and the LG G Flex has basically the exact same processor. Well, it's not basically, it is the exact same processor, clocked at 2.26 gigahertz. The real difference where people think that the performance increase is going to come in is where the Galaxy Note 3 has 3 gigs of RAM and and the G Flex only has 2. By the way, in case you guys are wondering, 2 gigs is more than enough to run Android, especially KitKat nowadays, 4.4.2. But, and I mentioned in that video that you really couldn't, or at least I really couldn't tell the differences when I use each device by themselves. You only notice the difference when you put the 2 devices beside each other and open up the exact same applications, and you can see that the Note has just like maybe a half-second jump on launching applications over what the G Flex is capable of doing. So I didn't really have a complaint there at the time. Since that video, I've been having some more issues with performance. I noticed that some applications do take a bit to open. I'll tap on it and wonder and second guess myself, did I actually tap on that app, or is it just being slow to open up? And by the time I get to the end of that thought, then the application finally launches, which was a little bit concerning. I've also had applications actually just close on me. No force close message or anything like that. It wasn't showing up in my recent tasks. It wasn't from me, backing out accidentally. The thing would just apps, YouTube, the browser, they just boop, just disappear, and I have no idea what happened to it. The most prominent strain on, or string on lag, if you will, I noticed from the lock screen, it has some sort of an issue with deep sleep. It wakes up in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, you press the button to turn it on, which is located on the back there, and it does turn on, though it's a little bit slow for my liking, but not slow enough for me to be like, I hate this, it's a slow piece of crap. What I do think makes me feel that way is when at the lock screen, if I receive a notification and I pull down the notification tray and I try and access it, and generally speaking, if you were to say, for instance, receive an email and you tap on the email in your notification tray from the lock screen, it should launch that application right away. Now with my Galaxy S4, which has a slower processor, the Snapdragon 600, it launches those applications, or it launches into those applications from the lock screen instantaneously. The G Flex, on the other hand, believe it or not, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, can take upwards of 4 seconds for it to actually launch into the application. In fact, when I first started noticing this issue, I began to wonder if it was maybe some sort of security setting that I had to disable that prevented you from accessing applications from the lock screen. Though after extensive looking through the menus, there's no such security. And so as a result, it's literally just a matter of either the device goes into too much of a deep sleep, or it's just bloody slow at launching applications in general. So there's sort of my issue with the performance of it. It's sort of intermittent, whereas, with other devices like the HTC One, the Galaxy S4, and the Galaxy Note 3, it's more consistent. The performance is more consistent. That said, I know people are screaming TouchWiz is heavy and it does lag your devices, but it hasn't lagged it in the way that I've felt on this device. Now, another thing I wanted to touch base on while we're at it is the UI. In my comparison video, I did happen to point out that although not everybody likes TouchWiz, including myself, I think that they've got a lot of changes that they need to make with TouchWiz in order to make it sort of more pleasing to the eye. I did prefer it, and still do prefer it, slightly over LG's UI. That said, though, LG's UI I find to be considerably more practical. And let me go ahead and give you guys an example. So as far as personalization and practicality is concerned, go ahead and long press on the screen like you would with most devices, and you've got a slew of applications that you can add or remove from the lock screen, widgets, your wallpapers, you can add or remove screens. That's fantastic. If, for instance, you have a picture in the background as your wallpaper and you want to show your friends really quickly without having to jump into, your gallery or so on, or even try and leave a blank screen so that you can show your friends those pictures, you can go ahead and just pinch out and it gives you the full image right there ready to go, which I thought was really, really convenient. Now, in addition to that, you go ahead and pull down the notification tray, and of course, you've got all these quick settings up here at the top here. But we also have this addition of QSlide, which is basically just, a bunch of apps that you can toss in here, so you don't have to go navigating through your home screens or through your application tray in order to find them. So I think that's really cool. And if you don't like having this extra second ugly-ass bar here, and I completely sympathize with you on that one, you can go ahead and tuck it away just like that. Super convenient. They also have Quick Memo, which I think is really awesome. You have got the Galaxy Note 3 with the S Pen. Fantastic. But it's just so industrial looking. It looks like, I've said this every single time I've ever gotten a Note device, a Galaxy Note device in my hand, is that I really feel, although consumers have completely adopted the Galaxy Note 3, that it's really tailored towards students or business people in mind. It just has such an industrial feel to it. What LG's done with Quick Memo here is, in my opinion, pretty awesome. It's very user-friendly, very simple to do what you need to do, and everything's just very, very simple with it, and I just really like the way they've done it. It's just very convenient. Now, something else, if we go ahead and jump into the settings menu here, they also have this is one thing that I want to touch base on. Again, comparing to the Galaxy Note 3 or any Galaxy devices, they've just jam-packed the settings menu with so many options that a lot of people, when you first get the device out of the box, there are a lot of really cool parlor tricks and party tricks, things that you would be kind of showing off to your friends and bragging, look, I can wave my hand and do all this fancy stuff. The fact of the matter, the truth of the matter is that 99% of the people that I know personally, as well as online, who have those devices with those features, never use them. They just turn them off because they're just battery killers, because they just don't work. They work, but it's not consistent enough to justify keeping them on and to drain the battery like that. LG, what they've done here is actually kept the settings menu to a minimum. It's well categorized, and actually this really resembles TouchWiz with all the different categorization tabs up here at the top here. And while we're in here, the settings menu, as far as networks and sounds concerned, I'm not really interested in anything. There's nothing that gives me a wow factor in these two, obviously. But when we jump into display here, you can see that we've got this option, home screen. So you've got a couple of different themes that you can choose from. You can change the screen swipe effect, and you can actually preview it on screen here, which I thought's really cool. You can back out here. You can jump into front touch buttons. So because this is a massive 6-inch display, LG has taken that into consideration, realized that people might have a bit of an issue navigating the device, and as such, you can come down here and you can set it so that you can kind of push all the on-screen buttons to one side or the other, lefty or righty, pick your choice. You also have this button combination, because perhaps you're not satisfied with this particular combination down here. You can go ahead and choose anything from the menu here, though unfortunately, in case you guys were wondering, you can't rearrange these particular combinations. You get what you get, but hey, it's an option. They're features. It's something to personalize your device, which is always very welcoming, right? And aside from that, you can change the color, though really not to anything too particularly fancy, just between black and white, which is perfectly fine with me. Now, like I was mentioning a minute before, Samsung, they pack in all these extra bells and whistles and things like that to kind of give you the impression that you've got this super fancy magical device. LG has decided to kind of go the other way on that one. They give you and provide you settings and features that I think most people would need, and really logical settings and features at that, but they have tossed in a couple of extra features that some people might argue they stole from Samsung, or people might argue that Samsung stole from LG. Who knows? Did the chicken come before the egg sort of a scenario, right? But we do have smart screens, so of course, like the Galaxy S4 and just like the LG devices now, smart screens, basically it stays on using your front-facing camera. The display stays on as long as it's detecting that you're still looking at the device. Again, that's something that is really hit or miss, and something that I never use on any of my Galaxy devices after I realized how inconsistently they perform, because really it does come down to having like optimal conditions, lighting, and so on, and if there happens to be a shadow casting across your face, can really cause issues sometimes. Smart video, pretty much the same thing, although it's just while you're watching videos, YouTube as an example, something draws your attention away from the display, you happen to look away, it pauses the video for you. Again, just as inconsistent as any other device that has this feature. So those are two things that I never use, though it's nice that they did add them because they're kind of cool parlor tricks, and some people out there use these, and it looks as if they took like a focus group and said, all right, here's the Galaxy S4. Which out of all these ridiculous features that Samsung packed in here do you actually use the most? They took the two and threw them in their UI, and I'm totally okay with that. So aside from that, you've got screen capture area and aspect ratio correction, depending on some applications might not fit well with a 6-inch device, and so on and so forth. But anyways, and then you've got different gestures and things like that, and of course one of the coolest things that I really like is this whole knock-on feature, or with Android 4.4.2 or with the LG G Pro 2 that we've seen, it's actually called Knock Code, but because we aren't at that Android version or LG UI version on this device yet, it's still knock on, so you just knock in the center of the screen, it turns the display on, you go ahead and unlock it, and if you wanted to relock it again, find an empty space on your home screen, double tap, and it turns it off again. I think that's really, really convenient, and I actually use that feature all the bloody time. Now, one thing that I did want to touch base on that's obviously really important for a lot of people out there is battery life. A lot of people, they don't even care what the phone comes with as long as it lasts them a full day. Now, the Galaxy Note 3, in comparison, has a 3200 milliamp hour battery, and I've always said that I get great battery life out of my Galaxy Note 3. Again, usage definitely depends, or battery life definitely depends on usage, and that varies from person to person. The LG G Flex, though, has a 3500 milliamp hour battery, and is considered considerably less bloated than TouchWiz is on, or than the TouchWiz like on the Galaxy Note 3 and so on. So battery life should last a little bit longer. Plus, it's not having to power that 1080p display because it's only got a 720p display. So you are going to be saving on battery life there. And I can say, and I can confirm with you that this device will last you a full day. I would be extremely impressed. I mean, you'd have to be watching nothing but videos, like movies, back to back, and maybe even have some applications running in the background, and then play like a good solid hour or two of video games before you can actually drain that battery in one charge. So I have been really, really impressed with the battery performance. Now, another thing that's really important to a lot of people out there is the camera. How is the camera? How is the camera? How is the camera? Well, this camera is a 13 megapixel camera, capable of recording in 1080p, and even capable of recording at 4K. So let's go ahead and jump on that for just a quick second here. And you know what? I've always really liked the cameras on Samsung Galaxy devices. They've just always worked for me, but one of my biggest complaints about the camera on Samsung Galaxy devices is the camera UI itself, the actual camera application. My complaint with the Samsung Galaxy camera application applications is that they just look overdone, overwhelming. There's just too much going on, and it can be confusing and maybe even a little bit overwhelming for somebody that isn't really into photography too much. And you know, I'd really like to see more people using some more of the manual features and options and things like that on mobile device cameras. But for the most part, most people, you know, if they have a Samsung Galaxy device, they set everything on auto because they don't really understand what everything else does. If we come into the LG G Flex's settings menu here, this is what you get. It's well laid out. It's not some confusing list menu. It's in a grid, so everything is there for you to see. And a lot of these options you'll notice are actually options that people, at least myself, I would actually use these. Nothing that I wouldn't use. And even though they keep it very simplistic and very easy and underwhelming, or if that's the proper terminology for this, they still give us a couple of extra options that kind of give us that sort of more professional edge on things, such as the manual or autofocus. Of course, face tracking has been around for a long time now. And of course, ISO, and you got your white balance, you've got your color effects and so on, but they haven't overdone it with things, which I think is really, really nice. In addition to that, in my comparison video, I did happen to mention that I noticed the G Flex from time to time suffers from autofocus. It just didn't autofocus very well at that time. Since then, I haven't had any issues with it really whatsoever. Let me go ahead and show you. So, I mean, you know, I can just go ahead and keep focusing on things, and it focuses really, really quickly and does a great job of it as well. And of course, like I mentioned before, you do have that manual focusing option as well if you really want to get artistic. And it actually takes pictures really fast. You know, I compared the Galaxy Note 3 to the G Flex in terms of picture taking speed, and whereas the Galaxy Note 3, not every single time, but once in a while, the G Note would, the Note 3, I'm getting these two confused. The Note 3 would have a processing bar going across the top or going across the middle of the screen when you're trying to take a picture. Whereas the G Flex, consistently, time after time, you take a picture, it's ready to go. Take a picture, ready to go. By the time processing is done on the Galaxy Note 3, I've already taken 3 pictures on the LG G Flex. So I'm really digging the camera on this, and the color replication of it is just fantastic. I think they've done a really, really good job on that one. Now, another thing that you guys might be interested in is LG's new sort of self-healing back technology. I gotta tell you right off the bat, I absolutely hate glossy back phones. You know, when the HTC One came out and it was an all aluminum body, it was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. And then, you know, again, Samsung puts out their Galaxy S4 and oh look, it's, you know, a slimy back again. And it looks like LG's done the same thing. However, at least it's got some function to it now finally, right? So it's got a self-healing back. Now, it's not going to stand up against like throwing a bloody rock at it or something like that. But if you happen to have it in your pocket and your keys scratch it, or you've got some chump change that scratches it up a little bit, it's supposed to be able to self-heal itself under the right conditions. And generally speaking, if you have it in your pocket, the temperature is going to be just right. And it's going to be actually accommodating to that self-healing technology, which is fantastic. Now, I haven't put this to the test. There's plenty of other videos out there that kind of put it to the test, to the point where you can, you know, they'll demonstrate some of the cuts or scratches that don't heal themselves. But it actually, for the most part, I haven't been trying to baby the phone from putting it in different pockets. I throw it purposely in the same pocket with my keys and my change and things like that. And when I pull it out, you know, obviously obviously the Gorilla Glass is doing its job, but the back, there was no scratches if there was any scratches that had incurred on it. I, to this day, still can't see any scratches on it, and I haven't been gentle with it by any stretch of the imagination. Now, my last sort of gripe, but it's sort of cool at the same time, I don't really know how to explain this, is the controls being on the back of the device. Some of my friends like Sam J. Poland, some of you guys are going to be subscribed to him, absolutely love having these controls on the back of the phone. And you know what, when I first got it, or when I first saw it come out on the G2, I thought it was awesome. I'm like, that makes perfect logical sense. Your fingers are on the back there when you're on the phone. It just makes sense to have that there. What I didn't realize is after using it for a while, and some people, they absolutely love it, they've gotten used to it. I still haven't gotten used to it yet. Maybe it's going to take me a little bit more time, I don't know. But I find more often than not that if I'm in the middle of a phone call, I happen to be either pressing the camera itself, thinking that it's a button, or when I'm trying to adjust the volume, sometimes I press the actual power button, which then turns the display on, and bad things happen. I've had buttons pressed, and I've ended calls accidentally, and so on. And that was really sort of unacceptable for me. And so when it comes to buttons on a phone, I guess call me old school, but I still prefer the traditional buttons on each side of the device, or even, as much as I hate to say this, having the power button at least on the top. But although I still think this is cool, and I think this might work really, really well for a lot of people, it's just not up my alley. Another aspect of this phone, which I thought was really cool, is actually the micro USB port here is USB 3.0, apparently. You know, we've seen on the Galaxy Note 3 the USB 3.0 plug on there, and it looks considerably different than this, although you can still plug in standard micro USB. For some reason, this one does not look anything like the one on the Galaxy Note 3. So I thought to myself, is this really USB 3.0? So I tested it out, and then I ran some speed tests, not only on my Patriot flash drive, but also connecting it directly to my computer. And although we're not getting USB 3.0 speeds like most of us are probably used to, connecting, for instance, my Western Digital portable hard drive, which is USB 3.0 compatible, and my iMac here, which has USB 3.0 ports on it, those speeds are absolutely breakneck incredible. It was still considerably faster from this device data transfer speeds, file transfer speeds, than any device I've ever had other than the Galaxy Note 3. So if you guys are looking for fast transfer speeds, yeah, you don't have to worry about that with this device. So anyways, guys, my conclusion to this device is it's cool. It's got great internal specifications. I really like LG's UI and what they've been doing since the G2, the LG G2. It's just very, very practical. I think it would be nice if they used some different colors and some different theming going on there. It's not exactly eye-pleasing, but it's functional, and that's, to me, what's most important. The camera itself is more than adequate. It's actually a really, really impressive camera. The display is absolute garbage, and I personally think LG should be ashamed of themselves. I don't care if this device has been in production for 5 years. Don't release something like this that shouldn't be mass produced. The battery life on it is absolutely fantastic. I have zero complaints with it. Performance, it's hit or miss. Again, I've got some issues with lock screen, wake lag, things like that. But aside from that, it's a pretty decent device, though I can't see myself recommending it to any of you out there, especially at the price point, which is basically matching the Galaxy Note 3 and other premium, expensive flagship devices. This device I've seen anywhere between $700 to $800, depending on where you shop. You might even be able to find it for $650. I don't know. But if you ask me, based on the performance of the device and the display, which is always probably the most important thing of a phone because that's what you have to look at, this device would probably, I would feel more comfortable if it was priced in and around the $500, maybe even $450 range. But anyways, guys, that's just my opinion on the device. This is my review and opinion on the device. Everything I say is purely subjective in my opinion only. You're more than welcome to disagree or agree with me in the comments below, but that is it for this one though. Hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, click that likes button down below and maybe subscribe for more videos in the future if you haven't already. But thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.